They billed themselves as the innovators, new disruptors in an old market of energy suppliers. But as of this afternoon, gone is the green energy glitz. Their website now a tombstone reading, "We are saddened to let you know that green is ceasing to trade." And then the dominoes began to fall. Avro Energy, the same message to their 500,000 customers. And the latest, Igloo, reportedly on the brink of insolvency and in talks with administrators.
We do expect more. We do expect more to face not to be able to face the circumstances we're in. But it's genuinely
winter is indeed coming, said the boss of the energy regulator this morning to a parliamentary select committee.
So look, we're planning for a range of scenarios, and we do expect a large number of customers to be affected. We've already seen hundreds of thousands of customers affected. That may well go well above that.
And within hours of that appearance, the numbers at risk rising. Green has 255,000 customers, Avro 580,000, and if Igloo follow, 100,000. In all, nearly 1 million customers now unsure who they'll be paying and how much. The assumption, though, it'll be more. Post-COVID demand for gas is up. Supply, there's a shortage. So wholesale prices have increased fourfold since the beginning of the year. It's a surge dozens of smaller energy firms are not prepared for. 7 have gone bust since January, and Bulb are now seeking financing. Little sympathy today from the business secretary.
What's the message you would send to the directors of those companies at this stage about where they should be looking first to get that?
I think they should look to their own resources and look at their own business models and their own management, because it cannot be right for companies that have entered the market recently and then now essentially in difficult times stretching out a hand for taxpayers' money. I don't think that's right. And I would ask and I am asking the industry to look to itself to support itself.
Tonight, anger from Green. In a statement, they accused the government of failing to support smaller energy suppliers, saying the business secretary had accused them of bad business practice. The reality is that soaring energy prices are due to a global gas shortage. And they fear that smaller energy suppliers are being left behind by the government, with rescue packages being put in place for larger suppliers. Ahead, a cold winter. Job losses for thousands in the industry and hundreds of thousands of customers unsure of who will be providing their energy and their increasing bills. There is real anger in the industry tonight. Earlier on, we spoke to the chief executive of Green Energy, and he accused the government of essentially throwing them to the wolves with no help whatsoever, just hours after the government agreed to give tens of millions of pounds to the American firm CF Industries so that they would restart one of their plants to produce carbon dioxide, which is needed in the food industry. And this is a gift, not a loan, to an American firm of taxpayers' money. The government say it was critical to get production up and running expeditiously. That's why we needed this government intervention. We haven't got a specific response from government to Green's statements, but the government are at pains to point out that they're protecting customers and taxpayers' money are the priority. But at the root cause of both of these crises, both the shortage of carbon dioxide and what's going on with energy suppliers, is the skyrocketing price of gas. It's the same thing. Gas suppliers are feeling a little hard done by.
Paul, thanks very much. Well, earlier I spoke to the Shadow Business Secretary, Ed Miliband. I began by asking him whether it was disingenuous for Labour to suggest they could do anything differently as global gas prices continue to surge.
Look, I think the truth is it is a global issue, but we are very vulnerable as a country, and that is to do with what the government has and hasn't done. So, the truth is that because the government allowed our gas storage to be removed, because it hasn't moved on energy efficiency, because it hasn't moved quickly enough on renewables, our nuclear program is stalled, and above all, we don't have a proper plan for how we meet our zero carbon objectives I fully support. That has left us more vulnerable to the very volatile international gas market.
So you point there to what the Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng is saying, that the government and taxpayers shouldn't bail out these businesses. Would Labour bail them out? How much would it cost and where would you find the money?
Well, I think it's not so much a question of bailing out failing businesses. I'm not in favour of that. I think the question is those customers are going to need to be taken on somewhere. And I think what I believe is that if taxpayer money is necessary for that, we need to be really, really careful about ending up concentrating the oligopoly of the big six energy suppliers. So let me give you this example, Jackie. When Virgin East Coast went down, what the government did was it stepped in and said, well, look, we'll have a public entity to house that, at least for a temporary period, that franchise. I think that is an option that needs looking at, because I think that could be a way of getting better value for money than putting taxpayer money to concentrate the grip of the big six on the energy market.
So just to be clear, are you talking about some sort of nationalisation here?
Well, I'm talking about a public supplier of last resort. Yes, I think that is something that needs to be looked at.
But the problem for Labour, of course, is, you know, for example, this part nationalisation or the supplier of last resort. The question for the public is, how would Labour pay for it?
Well, I think the question for the government also is how you would pay for it. But in the end, if you face a choice between customers not getting their energy supplies or the government having to step in, the government will have to step in. It is absolutely a last resort.
Very briefly, because I want to move on in a second, but you called for a price cap when you were Labour leader, and that was adopted by the Tories. Yeah. But that is what is arguably contributing to the domestic crisis right now. A lot of the smaller companies saying that is what is effectively pushing them out of business because they can't increase their prices. Do you accept that?
I don't see it that way, Jackie. I think that the price cap is one of the things that is actually providing some protection for customers. And, people may remember or may not that David Cameron said it was living in a Marxist universe to have a price cap. I think it was the right thing to do.
Just while you're here, Mr. Miliband, I have to ask you about the Labour Party. The Labour leader wants to change the rules again about how the party elects its leader, overturning the policy you brought in. Do you support him?
I support Keir Starmer, yes. Look, I made
but do you support what he's doing with this specific policy?
I support. It's his prerogative to make the changes he thinks are necessary, and I'm happy to support him. I made the changes that I thought were necessary. He is now coming along and making the changes that he thought were necessary. But the ultimate decision maker on this is the Labour Party, and they'll take the Labour Party as a wider movement will take their view.
And I just wonder whether you think the public ought to be impressed or horrified at Labour's ability to eat itself by raising this internal issue once again, at a time when you point out millions of people are facing a cut to universal credit, who tell us all the time about facing a real crisis in their living standards.
Look, I think what you'll see at the Labour Party conference next week is, of course, there's always internal issues at Labour Party conferences. We, as a party, will absolutely be focused on the bread and butter issues. My focus is on the gas price crisis facing so many families and on the climate crisis as well. And our focus next week will be on the British people and their concerns.
Ed Miliband, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you very much.